And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Monday morning's flying weather graphic. We've got some IFR here from the northern Bering Sea along the southwest coast, and VFR, Pribilof Islands, eastern Aleutians, out to about Adak, and then marginal VFR here, Kodiak Island, the Alaska Peninsula, southern Cook Inlet, sliding up along the eastern slopes of the western Alaska Range, southern Kenai Peninsula, and in toward Prince William Sound with good VFR from Cape St. Elias area, maybe even Cordova, on down the southeast coast and all the way up to the Arctic coast. VFR holds over the interior tomorrow with some marginal VFR again, Prince William Sound, Kenai Peninsula, western Cook Inlet, all at Kodiak Island there, and maybe a little bit there over toward Misty Fjords area in the Panhandle, but here we've got a swath of marginal VFR down across the Alaska Peninsula with some IFR embedded there. Nunivak Island right along the Yukon Delta coast up towards St. Lawrence Island, and then good VFR here over the Aleutians. And for Tuesday morning, have this band here of IFR off the coast now, but close enough to Nunivak Island to spread into that area. And looks like just southwest of St. Lawrence Island. To the west, pretty good conditions, mostly VFR out there for the Aleutians and the remainder of the Bering Sea. Nothing but VFR over the interior up to the Arctic coast, and still looking at some marginal VFR areas of the eastern southern Kenai Peninsula and Kodiak Island there in the Alaska Peninsula and over the southern southeast coast, and actually marginal VFR spreading up to Port Alexander. And then that kind of holds for the afternoon hours. Prince of Wales Island marginal elsewhere, VFR all the way up to the north slope there. Finally some IFR showing up on the western Arctic coast. And this band of IFR holding here, pretty stationary there between the Pribilof Islands, Nunivak Island, on up between St. Matthew and St. Lawrence Island. IFR up to the eastern Kodiak Island, Fogneck Island coastline, and still marginal VFR up into western Prince William Sound, and some marginal VFR out there for Adak westward to Kiska Island. And for the passes, Brooks Range tomorrow, Anatuvik and Adigan, wide open again, VFR flying through both passes there. Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR becoming marginal VFR during the morning hours and then through the afternoon on the western entrances, and for Rainy staying VFR throughout the day. Monday looking good for Windy and Isabel VFR, Mentasta VFR, as well as Tanita. Portage becoming marginal VFR during the morning hours through the afternoon, especially on the eastern entrance here. And for Chilkoot and White, another VFR day there. And for the freezing levels here, 2,000 feet right over Dixon entrance, otherwise well south of the Gulf of Alaska and south of the Alaska Peninsula as well, all the way out west, but at the surface here, right across St. Matthew Island, northern Bristol Bay, along or just off the North Gulf Coast, and then down across the south coast of the Panhandle. Icing, look for possibly some isolated moderate rime icing here along a moisture band from St. Lawrence Island down across Nunivak Island to the Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak Island, back up in toward southern Kenai Peninsula area, Kamishak Bay. Otherwise, nothing of any significance anywhere else around the state, so we'll jump to the jet stream. High pressure aloft here, right over the interior, and northwest winds up to about 65 knots there, clipping the eastern Arctic coast. Otherwise, low pressure farther to the west here, southerly flow, the Bering Sea, 65 to 75 knots. And then we've got northwesterlies at 65 knots there over the extreme southern southeast coast. And at 9,000 feet here, again, high pressure up over the Yukon Flats. And we've got northwest winds up to 40 knots, west-northwest on the eastern Arctic coast. Otherwise, southeast winds here on the other side of the ridge there, anywhere from 35 to 50 knots here across the southwest interior areas. Much lighter for the Alaska Peninsula and the central and eastern Aleutians, up to 40 knots though, but that's south of the western Aleutians there. And then some southerly to southeast winds here over the northern Bering Sea, 35 to 40 knots. And at 3,000 feet, looking at pretty good east-southeast winds up to 60 knots there across the southwest interior here, northern Bristol Bay area. Also pretty windy there for Kodiak Island. And here over the northern Bering Sea, south winds up to 40 knots. Narrow band of some wind here in the interior out of the east at about 35 to 40 knots. 35 knot easterlies western north slope in the Arctic coast. Light for the Panhandle and much of southern Alaska here on into Canada under high pressure. So looking at turbulence, we've got possible mechanical turbulence here with gusty gap winds here out of the northeast for the eastern North Gulf Coast, Copper River Basin, and toward Lynn Canal Glacier Bay area. Otherwise, the heavier turbulence, more widespread, will be over the southwest interior, down to Kodiak Island and the Alaska Peninsula areas, St. Lawrence Island, and also here along the northwest coast into the Kobuk Valley areas.